Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Welcome to MARC, the Mullah Asghar Library and Resource Center for our program Conversations with Authors. My name is Shabbir Jaffer and I'm one of the directors here. Every month, we invite an author or an academic from the Muslim community to join us to talk about their work and answer some questions. Some of you may not know much about MARC, as it is known, as is popularly known. So here's just a very brief summary. The Mullah Asghar Memorial Library and Islamic Resource Center, or MARC for short, is named after the late Mullah Asghar ILham Barto, who was a scholar and beacon of the Khoja Shia Ithnashi community. We have three key strands of work. The first is knowledge navigation. MARC works to make Islamic knowledge accessible by maintaining an Islamic library, providing seminar space for classes and discussion groups, hosting children's programs, producing exhibitions that promote Islamic learning, and sharing links for further Islamic studies on its website. The second strand of work is heritage. MARC works to preserve and promote learning about the heritage of the Khoja Shia Ithnashi community through the collection and preservation of heritage texts, hosting a permanent wing dedicated to Khoja history, as well as short-term exhibitions on aspects of Khoja heritage, and the publication and production of literary and multimedia materials about Khoja history. And the third key strand is interfaith work. MARC works to improve relations between people of different faiths by hosting interfaith events, opening its doors to visiting school groups and others who would like to learn more about Islam and the Shia faith, and creating exhibitions and multimedia that encourage learning about different religions and interfaith dialogue. If you'd like to know more, please visit our website at www.marcresource.org. That's www.marcresource.org. There you can also sign up to receive news of our future events and access videos of past ones. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to our author for today's program. I have some questions for her, and after that, I'm going to turn it over to you, the audience, our listeners, to ask her questions about or comment on her work. I'd ask you to please use the chat function on Zoom and text your questions to me, or if you'd like to ask the question orally, please click on the little hand icon to let me know, and then we'll unmute you and let you in. So now, let's meet our author for today. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce you all to Linda ILham Barto, who is joining us from North Carolina, USA. Linda ILham Barto became a Muslim in 1999 at the age of 50. Although she was a devout and practicing Christian who wasn't looking for a new religion, she was led to Islam by a series of dreams. The dreams inspired her to read the Quran, and every time she thought that the Quran was wrong, she did more research and found the Quran to be true. Her husband Tom also read the Quran and also came to believe in the message. Their son Duston became a Muslim shortly after they did, and their adopted daughter Tana is what is referred to as a Chrislim, meaning she's still on the journey between Christianity and Islam. Linda is an author and illustrator. Her published work includes the following titles: The Bible and the Quran at the Edge of Renaissance, a Judeo-Christian Muslim compass to a world of peace. Where the Ghost Camel Grins, Muslim fables for families of all faiths. A Ramadan Rhapsody, a daily celebration. The Emergence of God and Other Topics. And finally, a universal message interpreted from the Holy Quran. Linda was featured author at the 2009 Book Expo America in New York. The National Association of Professional and Executive Women elected Linda as their 2010 Woman of the Year in the category of authors. In the same year, Linda's book, Memoirs of a Hillbilly Muslim, was published, and it will be the subject of my conversation with Linda today. So thank you for joining us. By the way, Linda is also a decorated veteran of the US Air Force with whom she served for 13 years. So let's bring her in now. Linda, Assalamu alaikum, and thanks for joining us today.
Alaikum assalam, and I'm pleased to be here. I appreciate your inviting me.
You're very welcome. We will be asking you a series of questions about your book, but before that, I do want to say something about it, for the benefit of our listeners. This book is very different to any other book that some of you might have read. I'm talking about the book's structure and style as well as its content. But I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil it for you. But each chapter begins with a verse from the Holy Quran, and it's followed by a parable that encompasses an experience that Linda or someone close to her had in life. And then Linda expresses her thoughts in a very forthright manner on a wide variety of subjects. And you'll start to see what I mean when you read it. It's a book not only with a very arresting title, Memoirs of a Hillbilly Muslim, but some very arresting thoughts and opinions. And you will find yourself very enlightened by not only her style, but also her thinking and the opinions she expresses. So, Linda, you've written several books, and by the way, thank you for the copies that you donated to Mark's library. Tell us how you started writing, and what are the highlights of your writing career?
Well, I actually have always been creative as long as I can remember, and I'm an artist and illustrator as well as a writer. So I've always been doing something creative since I was like 3 or 4 years old. After I got out of the military, I went to a community college and studied commercial art, and there were writing courses that I took along with commercial art. And I also took a 2-year course with the Institute of Children's Literature. And I worked as a graphic artist and writer for a community college until 1983. I started freelancing, and I have an art studio at home, and I did writing and graphic arts and illustration, doing brochures and booklets and training materials, things like that. And as you mentioned, in 2009, I had 3 books published, and this one, where the Ghost Camel Grins, has 46 of my illustrations, and I just wanted to show one, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
This is one of my illustrations from that book. And the Ramadan Rhapsody. Okay, the Ghost Camel book took about 3 years to write. The Ramadan Rhapsody took about a year and a half. And then the Bible and the Qur'an at the Edge of Renaissance, that took 6 years because it was so much research went into the book. Yeah. And then in 2010, the Memoirs book was written. Right. And then last year, I had 2 books published, The Emergence of God and an interpretation of the Quran.
You've been a very busy woman. You are a busy lady. Okay, so let's turn to the book that we're going to discuss today. And that is, of course, Memoirs of a Hillbilly Muslim. It's got a very catchy and arresting title, rather compelling, if I can say so. I loved the introduction and the importance that it placed on humor, but it didn't say anything about the title, Memoirs of a Hillbilly Muslim. So tell our listeners what a hillbilly is, please.
Well, a hillbilly is just a simple mountain or foothills person that's not very sophisticated, and that's me. I'm not sophisticated. I'm real simple. We live a simple lifestyle. And being a hillbilly, a lot of people think we're ignorant and backwards, but that's really not fair.
Mhm.
We just have our own simple lifestyle, and we're not very materialistic. And I want to mention that the book, Memoirs of a Hillbilly Muslim, is currently sold out, but I am revising it and re-releasing it, inshallah, within a couple of months.
That's good to know. So thanks for telling us what that is about. In part one, I read the chapter called Adventures of a Reluctant Traveler, in which you tell us how you met your husband, Tom, and your early married life. Now, a little bit of levity here. Is it really true that when Tom proposed to you, you answered, "Okay, I'll marry you, but just this one, so it better be good"? Now, was that true, or was that just to add some humor to the chapter?
It's true. All the stories in the book are true, with the possible exception of the three-legged pig. And that's the pig. That's the pig that was such a good, loyal companion that
Yes.
the family didn't want to eat him all at once. So
Okay.
that's why he was only missing one leg.
Yes. And to be clear, it wasn't the family you're talking about, your family, was it?
No,
like
it wasn't my family.
No, no.
And I actually, in the revision, I took that story out and replaced it with a story that I know is true.
Okay, good. So let's talk about your conversion to Islam in May 1999. At the time, you were a practicing Christian living in the so-called Bible Belt. What was it that you read in the Quran and in Islamic philosophy that spoke to you in such a way that you and your husband Tom felt compelled to go to Tunisia, where you recited the Shahada in that lovely mosque that you described in your book?
Well, of course, I was inspired and led to read the Quran through a series of dreams that I had. And while I was reading it, I was also homeschooling my adopted special needs daughter. And I read in the Quran about the seven skies. And I have a kind of a scientific mind. And I had just taught her that day about the layers of the atmosphere and outer space, and from a science book. And I went and got the science book and looked. It had a chart on one page that showed all the layers, and I counted them up, and it counted up to exactly 7. So I saw that scientific fact in the Quran, along with a lot of other scientific facts, particularly in the area of quantum physics.
Okay. And that's eventually what led you there. And so did your life change in any ways, after you converted? And if so, what were some of the most significant ways that it did?
Well, it didn't change a lot because I wasn't a Hellcat to start with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
How did your neighbors and friends and relatives receive the news?
Well, most of them were just interested in our adventure in Tunisia.
Okay.
And were wanting to hear the story of our experiences, our travels there and everything. The biggest change, I guess, is just being rejected by so many Christians. The last time that Tom and I went to a Southern Baptist church was for a funeral. And the preacher knew that we were Muslims, and he got up during the funeral sermon and looked straight at us and said, "Allah is not going to save you. The Quran cannot teach you the truth." And, he directed that straight to us. And, the Christians here have the idea that we're lost and we need to be saved. And that takes some getting used to be considered lost.
Right. Okay, so you did see some changes, not a lot, and so then you wrote about the challenges. Actually, I should pause here briefly and say, just for everyone's benefit, Linda and Tom actually started embracing Islam and reading Islam and getting their interest in Islam before they actually went to Tunisia. Tunisia kind of was the final phase of their conversion, but they had already started to look into the whole the faith and start to embrace it before that. So it wasn't the trip to Tunisia that actually began the process, but that kind of finished it for them. Linda, in chapters 9 and 10, you wrote about the challenges that new Muslims like you, or at the time you were new, are sometimes faced with, like being ignored at the mosque and being judged for what you wear and not knowing the prayer rituals properly. I've heard this. I've heard this before from other converts, and I've read about other converts facing the same issues or having the same concerns, that when they come to mosque after converting, that they're not given the time of day necessarily. Did you and Tom experience any of these personally, and how did it make, or how hard did it make the whole experience of conversion?
I also have heard a lot of horror stories from converts about how they're mistreated in Islamic centers and mosques. And the first time that we went to a mosque here, I was not allowed to pray. The women said, "We don't know you. We don't know if you're a real Muslim, so you can't pray with us." And some of the women stuck up for me, and they said, you don't have a right to judge her. And they started fighting. So I said, don't let me be the cause of a fight. I'll just go sit in the back by myself. So I wasn't allowed to pray. And we went to one Islamic center, and Tana and I went, and we were the only women there, and we sat way in the back. But the imam got up and looked straight at Tom and said, "The Quran says women should stay home and not come to the mosque. So don't bring women with you when you come." And I couldn't remember reading that in the Quran.
Yeah.
I get criticized for my hijab because my bangs show. So I think that's silly. The Quran doesn't say exactly how a hijab is supposed to look. So I just kind of take things in stride and try to fit in. And the mosque where we were not allowed to pray, the first time we went, I have taught Sunday school there, and Tom has did the call to prayer there.
Wow.
So we just kept going until they got used to us.
Yes. I'm just struck by that, I have to say. Throughout my life, I've been told that mosques are open and accessible to everybody. Anybody who wants to come, whether male, female, they're all welcome to come and pray, especially to come and pray. To come in and cause trouble is one thing, but to come and pray to God, I mean, that's what a mosque is for. So regardless, so that's I'm struck by that and wonder where those people were coming from. But anyway, we're not here to solve that problem. Go ahead.
I should mention the imam, when he found out about it, he was very upset, and he wrote me a letter, apologized, and he called me on the phone and apologized. So it was not the mosque itself, but those certain people. Certain people,
right. Well, all credit to him for doing that. I was also struck by something you wrote in chapter 26, which was called The Spice of Life, in which you raised the issue of racial prejudice. You declared emphatically that spiritually there are only two races, the righteous and the unrighteous. What impressed me was how you began the chapter with a verse from Surah number 30 and concluded with a beautiful heartfelt prayer from Imam Fawaz Damra of Ohio. Can you elaborate further on this issue and maybe even If we can maybe read a couple of lines from that prayer. I have it here. But why don't I let you answer first while I find the prayer?
I was raised in a Southern Baptist church where there were Ku Klux Klan members that were deacons and Sunday school teachers. So when I was little, I heard a lot of racism, and during the civil rights movement, there were traveling preachers that came to the church to try to teach us that Black people were cursed, so they have no souls. And when I was
Really?
little, I was thinking, then why do they keep collecting money to send missionaries to Africa? What are they being saved from?
Yeah.
So it never made sense to me, and I never accepted that teaching. And in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, Black people were really treated like outcasts. They weren't treated equally. And even if a white person and a Black person were about to cross on the sidewalk, the Black person had to step into the street and hold his head down until the white person passed. So when I was 16, a Black man stepped into the street, and I stepped into the street also. And I started talking to him, and people stopped and stared like we were just doing something outrageous. A white woman talking to a Black man, that was just not done.
Right.
So I was always kind of a rebel in that way. I didn't accept the teachings of racism.
So let me just quickly recite a couple of passages from this prayer by Imam Damra. It's really beautiful. I won't do the whole thing, but in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, we appeal to you, O Lord, to have us all recognize what you have stated repeatedly in the Holy Scriptures, that we are all created from the same blessed pair, a male and a female, that we are of different races and cultures, certainly not to despise each other, but to be of comfort to one another. O Allah, guide us all as Americans through these difficult times. Help us not to confuse evil acts of misguided individuals of any denomination as emanating from the dictates of any divinely inspired faith, most certainly not coming from Islam, the name that translates as peace. We plead to you, O Lord, as Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did before us, grant that our present day be better than our yesterday, that our tomorrow be better than today, and best of all, that our ultimately blessed day be the day that we stand before you. Ameen. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And how did you find it? You have a connection with this Imam?
I think I read that prayer in a magazine or something, and I
Yes.
wrote to him and asked for permission to use it. So he gave me permission.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so in chapter, I want to move on because I want the audience to come in soon. In chapter 38, pages 102, 103, you express the need for Muslims to not only read, recite, explain, ponder, display, and publish it, but also live the Quran, the Holy Quran. And that's the emphatic part, to live the Holy Quran. That until we do so in such a way that others see less of us and more of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the vibrancy of the Holy Quran will be like an unlit lantern. Tell us why you think that, Linda.
Writers have a saying, show, don't tell. And what it means is to write in such a way that a reader can visualize the scene and visualize and sense everything that's going on in the scene. So, and by living the Quran, we should show and don't tell. And I try to do that in my writing. There are a lot of books, and there's a need for scholarly books that teach the laws and principles of Islam. But The problem is that a lot of the books teach about Islam, but they don't teach Islam. And what I mean by that is the spiritual connection is missing. They give rules, but they don't tell people how to connect to Allah, blessed is He, and how to build the God part of the brain, which connects us to the divine.
Okay, so you saw that, and that's what brought you to write the piece about living the Quran. I guess the whole thing about learning the God brain side of things. So later, you explore a number of topics of interest to Muslims and other faiths as well. For example, and this is quite a list, Linda's book covers a number of topics. The rationale for Islam's prohibition of pork consumption, alcohol, and gambling. The horrible practice of killing wild animals for sport. How Muslims should organize and be the first to go to natural disaster zones to help the suffering and the victims. The need to use farmland to grow food and not tobacco, poppies, and marijuana. The role of men and women in society and in a marriage. Promiscuity, parenting, adoption, the power of prayer, the evil of sectarianism, music and art, apostasy, moon sighting, and lastly, promoting peace in humanity. As I mentioned earlier, Linda, you began each chapter with a verse from the Holy Quran. You followed that with a parable of something that you experienced. And finally, you share your thoughts on the subject. You did all that, and you do all this with a keen sense of humor that is sometimes wry and sometimes in your face, for want of a better word. But always you do so with some sensitivity and understanding. How did you develop this unique structure for expressing your thoughts? The Quranic verse, the parable, and then the opinion. How long did it take you to develop that? And was that just relevant to this book, or have you used that structure in others?
Well, this particular book kind of took on a life of its own. A publisher had recommended that I write my autobiography, and I thought, why I'm nobody. Why would anybody want to read an autobiography about me? But I thought if I could write episodes from my life and use them as teaching tools, then maybe that would work. So my first thought was to do a daily devotional, and that's why it starts with a verse, a parable, and then a prayer. But I elaborated so much on the stories that I couldn't do 365 like that because the book would just be too thick.
Right.
So I narrowed it down to 99. And I covered so many topics because I don't have good sense. I went to a conference. I was asked to give a speech at this conference at a university. And when I walked in, there was a man there who only knew me from Facebook, but he recognized me and he said, "I know you and you're courageous." I said, "Huh? Courageous? Why would you say that?" He said, "Because you say what needs to be said." I said, "Oh no, that ain't called courageous. That's called not having enough sense to keep my mouth shut." So I do get into trouble because I talk about everything, and I'm pretty opinionated, and
but the views you expressed, the views you expressed aren't unreasonable.
Thank you, but I do say things that make people think and think in ways that they never thought before.
Yes.
And sometimes I get a lot of grief for that. Like on Facebook, I recently posted, "I am a better Christian as a Muslim." Now, there were over 320 people that understood what I meant and agreed with it, but there were about 5 people that could not understand that, no matter how many different ways I explained it. And I lost some friends over that.
Yes, yes. Okay. And did that particular statement have to do with the difference in which the prophet Jesus Christ is viewed, i.e., with the Trinity side and with the prophetic side on the other side, on the other hand? Is that why you said that?
Yes, there's a difference between being a Christian as a follower of Jesus and
Yes.
being a Christian as defined by the church.
Right, right. Okay.
So that's what I was getting at.
All right. Okay, so it's just gone 12:30. Time to bring our audience in. So audience, be prepared with your questions. We already have one from Brother Nazmul Damji. And that question reads as follows. Linda, do you agree that there is so much misunderstanding about Islam? And if so, how can this be fixed? Is the popular media interested in taking an unbiased view?
Of course, there's a lot of misunderstanding, and it's from a lack of knowledge, and also from the messages of hate that are preached in many churches. Not all churches, but a lot of churches teach lies about Islam. And I have a couple friends that only know Islam through me. And I had one that he goes to I think it's a Church of Christ. And he said the preacher got up and started telling lies about Muslims. And this young man stood up and he said, wait a minute, I know a Muslim, and that's not true. So every person has to be an ambassador for Islam and live Islam in order to show the truth, and stop denigrating other religions, because that's what other people do. Muslims should not be doing that. We should focus on the consonant values that make us alike and respect and appreciate the differences.
Yeah. Well said. Well said indeed. Other questions? I'm waiting for the audience to chime in. Alia, on the AV side, do you see any questions coming in? Anybody putting up their hands?
Yes. So there's one comment and there's one question. So would you like to read that, or do you want to read that?
I just found the comment, and it is from Brother Muhammad Moladina. Assalamu alaikum, Linda. Thanks so much for sharing your very inspiring story of being guided to the path of Islam. I look forward to reading your book when it is available. That's a comment.
Alaikum assalam, and I appreciate that. And I'll let you know when the book is available, so you can maybe pass that on.
Great. Okay, we have a hand up, and I will ask to unmute, and it's Eleen Rodan. Eleen, if you could unmute, and I don't know if we can. Alia, can you unmute? Okay, I think she's unmuted. Yes, go ahead, Eleen. Alaikum salam.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, alaikum assalam.
I just finished the book a few days ago, and what just really impressed me, and I couldn't understand how you did this down in North Carolina, or if it was all online or you went to raid some library, but the research in it on the teachings of other religions was impressive. And what really touched me and impressed me was all the wonderful inspirational prayers from religions around the world that you found. And I couldn't imagine how you found them all, but they were really lovely and uplifted my heart.
Thank you. I did try to include prayers from different religions, because I think it's so important to see how much we are alike and focus on those consonant values and be appreciative.
Okay, Thank you, Eleen, for that question. We have another question from somebody who's, if you like, handle on their device calls themselves Techno Spark. So we don't have a name, but anyway, it reads, "We really enjoyed your lectures and I feel so amazed to be part of this program. My question goes thus: will Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive anyone who associates a partner with him, bracket shirk? Thank you once again." Now, Linda, I don't know if you feel qualified to answer that. If you don't, then we'll respect that. But if you want to have a go, please do.
I will answer it. First of all, it's way above my pay grade to decide who's going to heaven or hell. I don't get enough royalties to take that job, but I will
Did we just freeze?
With Dr. Ahmed Pandor, and it is the only version of the Quran that is written at a 5th grade reading level for children and also for adults that don't have a high reading level. Like I've donated a lot of these books to prisons because most prison inmates don't have a high reading level. So in Surah 5, 116 through 118, there's a conversation between Jesus, peace upon him, and Allah, blessed is he. And God is asking Jesus if he asks people to worship him and his mother as divinities. And Jesus says, of course, that he never did that. And in verse 18, 118, excuse me, it says, Jesus is saying this: if you decide to punish them, they are still your servants. If you decide to forgive them, you are the victorious, the perfectly wise. So Jesus himself is leaving the judgment up to God. So my recommendation is that we do the same.
Okay, well said. Next question from Hussein. First of all, thank you all for having this discussion. I'd like to ask, what did our author Linda like most about Islam?
I think education, because when I researched the Quran, when I was first reading it, anytime I thought the Quran was wrong, I went and got library books and researched and found out it was right. And that expanded my knowledge so much, and I'm still learning. And in fact, in my last book, I wrote that I consider every book that I write as, even if it's published, it's still a work in progress because I'm still learning. And I'm always changing my opinions and my ideas. And I think we all should continue learning and evolving. And so my knowledge and understanding has increased so much more since I started studying Islam.
Yeah. Next question. I was just here. Yes, thank you. This is from Sabika Shaban. Sister Sabika, welcome back again. Thank you for sharing your experiences, Linda. For new converts, how do you think Muslim communities can best support converts in this incredible journey? This goes back to our earlier discussion about how converts are treated or dealt with, you know, when they first convert. How do you think we can better support? And in fact, Linda does make a good case for how to do that in one of the chapters in her book, but I'll let her elaborate on that now. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, we just need to stop being so harsh and judgmental and realize that it took 23 years for the Quran to be revealed. So we shouldn't expect a person to be perfected overnight. We need to be more loving and kind and accepting. And the mosque and Islamic centers should be places where everybody feels welcome and loved and understood, and nobody should be denigrated and ridiculed.
Thanks, Linda. Michael would like to ask a question. Michael, we'll just try to unmute you. Are you able to do that yourself, or should we try and do it?
I believe I can. Okay. Linda, it's good to see you. And I know you and I have been friends now for Facebook friends for about a year, I think. I'm curious to know your views on how we can find better common ground between Christians and Muslims.
Well, like I say many times, if we read one another's holy books and study each other's religions, we can find that there are so many more consonant values than there are differences. There's love and peace, compassion, charity, goodwill, and justice and fairness. And if we can just focus on those things, and we can affect the world for good instead of constantly arguing about the differences and trying to convert one another. I don't believe in proselytizing, and I don't believe in debates, because debates only push people farther away. It doesn't resolve anything. We need to show respect and appreciation for each other's religions and just share what we believe in a respectful manner.
So I think the answer there, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, is focus on the commonalities between the two faiths and the two communities, as opposed to the differences. And maybe there's a way to progress from there. I could be talking out of turn, but I think that's what I understood. What did you think, Michael?
Yeah, yes, I certainly agree. Linda and I have had some Facebook conversations, and one of the things that impresses me is there's a Christian version of the Shahada that I think helps to bring us together. I mean, right. the Shahada that a new convert must proclaim or confess is that there's only one God and that Muhammad is his messenger. Well, Jesus in John 17:3, when he prays, this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you've sent. The only difference between the two shahadas is the messenger mentioned. Right. So I find that is a good starting point in my efforts to bring my Christian friends and my Muslim friends together.
And we wish you every success with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question and your comment. A comment from, or actually a question from Eleen again. Living where you live, what libraries had all the resources for your research, Linda?
Well, we do have county libraries, and I would go to the library and come home with a stack of books, and I delved into those books, and I think the first one I read was A History of God by Karen Armstrong. And then I just read as many books as I could on various religions, and I took a course in world.
Sorry, Linda, 1 second. Somebody has unmuted themselves. Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. They've muted themselves now. So keep going. Sorry, they were interrupting you. Go ahead.
I learned as much as I could about the major world religions and tried to focus on the commonalities we have. And yeah, we do have libraries here, Eleen.
Okay. Back to Nazmul, Namji. Any comments on sectarian violence amongst Muslims, particularly in the Middle East, Pakistan, elsewhere? The imams in mosques have a lot to answer for as well. Okay, 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Well, people that know me know that I don't identify with any sect. I just call myself a Muslim. because I think sectarianism divides us, and I think the Quran tells us not to do that. We should be one. We should be more united. And I don't really have enough knowledge to make a statement about the Shiite and Sunni controversies and the Sufis and everything. But I do know that we need to be united, and we can't make Islam strong until we're united strongly ourselves.
Right. A couple of comments. One from Eleen. After I converted, I had similar experiences to Linda's at various mosques. Sorry to hear that, Eleen, but thanks for letting us know. And hopefully the mosque leadership will take on more responsibility for ensuring that that doesn't continue to happen. And indeed, not just the leadership, but the community in general. From Sabika Shaban, it says, sorry, I'm just trying to pull this up. Agreed, Karen Armstrong's works make for an excellent read. She is both a wonderful author and a wonderful personality. I would agree with that, having read Karen Armstrong. Are there any other books, Linda, that you would recommend by her, apart from that one that you mentioned?
I believe she wrote a book about Muhammad, peace upon him. I'm not prepared to mention her books right now, but yeah, she has written. She does make mistakes once in a while, like in her book. I think it was book A History of God. She made the mistake of saying that Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, was confused between Miriam, the sister of Moses, and Miriam, the mother, Mary, the mother of Jesus. But Miriam is the Hebrew for Mary. So that was an awkward mistake for her.
Right. I remember her books being particularly popular in the aftermath of 9/11, as the world, and particularly the Western world, tried to understand Islam and the motivations, etc. So she was particularly helpful in that case, in some of the things she said. But anyway, I was just following up on Sabika's comment there. There's another one, again from TechnoSpark. This is what Sensei had always clamored for. Hang on. This is what Sensei had always clamored for. She is chanting Ummah Wahida. She loves a united Muslim. Sensei wrote The Existence of God and also Memoir of the Hillbilly Muslim. An inmate called this book a gem. Alhamdulillah, she's making Islam go viral today in today's world. Okay, I'm not sure if you want to comment on that. Go ahead.
He calls me Sensei because I am a martial arts instructor.
Oh, and, I see.
Yeah.
You are a woman of many hidden talents, Linda. A martial arts instructor. Oh gosh, better not get into an argument with you.
The prison inmate said this book changed my whole life. So that was probably the best compliment that I ever got on that book.
It certainly is. AV team, any other comments, questions that I've missed, please?
No, you have gotten them all.
We've got them all. Okay. We've got 10 minutes. We're going to stop exactly at 1 because here in Toronto, the prayer time will be just after 1. But if there are any last minute comments or questions, please submit them now. In the meantime, what I would like to do is do a couple of things. And one is to thank Linda ILham Barto for joining us today, for writing all these wonderful books, and for giving us the time and her thoughts and opinions. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Is there a comment, Alia?
Yes, there is a comment. There's actually a couple of comments before I sign off.
Let me take a look. I'm thankful for my sister, my friend. Hang on. And that's from Eleen.
Jane.
Okay, 1 second. Oh, Jane Williams. Assalamu alaikum. I feel honored to be part of this Zoom. I read some excerpts of her books and got to know her basically from Facebook. I told her I want to order anything you have ever wrote. I do have some health issues with reading for long times. I'm currently reading this book now, and I've discovered that my parents were hillbillies, and I am too. Laugh out loud. Thank you, Jane. Would you like to say anything there, Linda, or are you good?
Love you too, Jane, and I appreciate your friendship and your support.
Okay. All right. And she adds, I love the sister, and I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directed my path to. I'm finally starting to understand Islam. I'm thankful to my sister. Eleen had to leave us, and I think that's it, right, Alia?
Yes, that is all.
Okay. Wonderful. So once again, thank you, Linda. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
I did. I hope I didn't sound too silly.
No, you didn't. On the contrary, we learned from you. All right, so I'd ask the audience to hang on because I'm just about to preview the next session, and then we'll close. So before I do that, my thanks to my AV team for helping out as well, and my thanks to all of you, the audience, who tuned in to listen to us today. We're very grateful to your support, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Now, our next session of Conversations with Authors will be on November 20th, when we will discuss the book called The Shining Star. And we'll be discussing it, and this is the book here. We'll be discussing it with the author, Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi, who, as many of you know, is the resident alim of the Jafri Community Center, as well as a renowned scholar in his own right. His book, The Shining Star, is a biography of his late father, Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi, who was for many years a light and shining light for Islam in East Africa, where he was resident alim in Lindi and Dar es Salaam. Maulana Rizvi has written this very engaging book about his late father's life, his contributions, etc. And I look forward to talking to him on November 20th. And now this is the important thing. On that day, we will be starting at 1 p.m., not 12 noon. And the reason for that is, of course, the time changes. Daylight savings time ends. And so by then, we will be doing the Zohar namaz at 12 and not at 1. So we will start the conversation at 1 p.m. And I look forward to seeing all of you then. In the meantime, have a great weekend. And by the way, congratulations and all the best for tomorrow, the birth anniversary of our holy prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's his birth anniversary. We will be celebrating tonight and tomorrow. So I hope you have a great time with your families and enjoy the celebrations. Thank you, everyone. And I bid you all a good weekend. Goodbye. Thank you.